Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX. And unfortunately, the hurricane, it's not going, I don't think, it's not hitting Sanibel as hard as it has in the past, but it is causing some flooding and power outages. So unfortunately, David, founder and CEO of BDEX, is not able to join us today. But we might have Adam Fitzgerald, our enterprise sales director, popping in, but also he was having some power issues. So stay tuned. If he comes in, we'll just flow with it and bring him into the conversation. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest, who is Peter Murphy Lewis. He is the CEO and founder of Strategic Pete. Let me go ahead and bring him in. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited to introduce you to our audience and, talk a little bit about podcasting because, of course, I can talk about that all day as well. And some of the ROI on it, which we'll get to here in a second. But before we do, could you start off by introducing yourself to the audience and telling them a little bit about how you help people at Strategic Beat?
Yeah, happy to. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. Easy to find me on LinkedIn because I'm the only Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm a fractional CMO like you, Jesse. I'm usually brought in when CEOs have a lot of data. They say too much data or they say messy data. And I come in when they have a lot of data and metrics from marketing, but they don't see a strategic path for turning that into revenue or growth. You'll find this problem everywhere. I work with the travel industry, which is the first company I started. I work a lot with SaaS, software companies, media, even zoos and banks, newly chartered banks, medium-sized community banks, assets around $1 billion. And you'd be surprised that zoos and banks have more in common than you believe. That's kind of what I do.
Oh, that is so interesting. So, pre-show, we were talking about zoos already a little bit, but really, you actually work with zoos. That is incredible. I hope we get to hear more about that, especially maybe even on this first topic, which is all about measuring ROI in leadership with podcasting and public speaking. Could you kick us off here?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I've worked with about 4-ish zoos over the last 4 years. I think most of that comes from my travel industry. The podcast and public speaking, I think, hits home because I got into podcast somewhat similar, I believe, to you, working in an enterprise SaaS company, enterprise software company. I got recruited, hired by an amazing CEO named Jason Long for a private equity turnaround for a company in 2020. And I got hired there to take over the marketing team, build up the marketing. And right when I got hired, we were right in the middle of COVID and I couldn't go visit our ideal customer. Right. We were working in the long-term care space. We were working in healthcare. So I couldn't go into a nursing home and talk to executive directors, administrators, CEOs who might want to use our electronic healthcare records system. And I didn't know what to do, right? Like I came from travel industry. I could do direct to customer. I could do B2C. I could do e-com. I could do content marketing. I could do social media. I even had experience with television. But I didn't know anything about SaaS and I didn't know how to talk to my customer. And that is how a podcast came about. It's a little bit of luck. It's a little bit of hard work being in the right place, but the podcast took off. And what I think that I realized after the podcast kind of went viral, we were one of the first podcasts in the space. And we started to realize that people knew who we were before we got to the conventions. And then I got invited to be a keynote speaker from all of the leaders that I was speaking to in the industry. And then it came up with the idea, well, why don't I just take the podcast to the convention? And I used the exact same tool that we're currently using right now. And I would show up at a convention with basic cameras, with a webcam and another camera. I would focus on me and another person. I got 2 mics. I learned all the sound on my system, all the audio on my own. And then I live streamed maybe 100, 200 videos at these conventions and spoke at 15 or so conventions as a keynote speaker. And I can tell you that the return on investment showed up in obviously pipeline, but I think the metric that people don't often think about is the sales cycle. So, if our sales cycle might be 3 months in a larger enterprise SaaS, something $20,000 a month or more, and the sales cycle was longer, when they are listening all day long, and Peter's voice with the company that I was working for, the private equity company, is talking all the time to experts in their industry, they start to trust you. It's way better than print. It's way better than SEO. Definitely didn't get hit by the Google algorithm in the last year. And, if as long as you're vulnerable and you're honest and you're not fake, even if you're not the expert in the room with the microphone behind you, that authenticity translate. And we saw it in the pipeline. And, there's multiple other occasions. That's just an example where I was working as the VP of marketing for a SaaS. But, I see it in my space as a fractional CMO. I go to a lot of conventions for a number of my clients. Go to a convention on Monday in Las Vegas for operators and CEOs that are buying and selling online businesses. I'm going on behalf of a private equity company that I work with called Web Street. And, we're going to be speaking there. We're going to get to know all the people there. I'm going to be taking my podcast equipment. We're doing a podcast takeover where I will be interviewing people who already have a podcast like yourself, but I get to ask them about themselves. And it's a lot more comfortable for me to ask you a question about you, and then you share that with your audience. We share audience. As long as we're not competition, it's a great win-win for both. Like the conventions that I go to for Dynamite Circle, SEO, I did it in Saigon and went with clients over there. So you and I were chatting about this before we went live. It's so hard for me to understand why companies that are in that sweet spot of, I'd say if you're north of $2 million in revenue, there's no reason that you shouldn't be thinking of a podcast for the potential that it will turn into public speaking. And you could just be the most helpful. You can be the most helpful person in the room, or in this instance, the most helpful person on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or StreamYard or wherever you're watching this, by helping someone talk about their company. And being a helpful person improves your pipeline.
Exactly. I mean, that's what business is all about, right? We're all just here to help people at the end of the day. But I loved everything that you just shared. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, and especially the story. Sometimes I was telling you this pre-show, I get so obsessed with digital marketing that I forget about the value of in person, and there really is a lot of value in person. That's incredible that you've had that many speaking engagements, and it all just spiraled from podcasts. So how did in marketing, we're always having to prove ourselves with the data. Like, how did you prove to them that these podcasts were worth it?
Well, I would say it was pretty evident when 3 months after starting the podcast, I got invited to be a speaker at a convention where 500 of our ICPs were going to be there. And they were going to have me on stage. They were going to see me doing live stream interviews 2 or 3 times a week. And they paid for my conference. They paid for my flight. They paid for my hotel. They treated me like a VIP. I got invited to the important dinners, the speakers' dinners, and the meet the board. And then, within 9 months, I was interviewing the CEO of the largest healthcare association in the United States. And we were talking about Kansas City Chiefs, and then talking about how he got into it, and then making him seem like a human being. And then, what happens when you talk to the most important person in your industry and you walk around the convention? People trust you and talk to you, and you just continue to be the helpful person. And you and I were joking that the amount of effort that you put into this just by being likable, which you are, paying for a subscription for StreamYards, $50 to $150, depending on what whistles you want on it, it's a simple payoff, right? You don't need a huge team to do this. I started off as a one-man show, I think similar to you. And when it saved my company $3,000 in convention costs, hotels, flights, rental cars. And then on top of that, we got every single time I went to a convention, we got a free table for our sales team. So our sales team would show up, and you know what tables can cost. Tables can be anywhere from $1,000 up to
Thousands. Yeah.
$7,000.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, that is like real proof, of the pudding, if or so to speak, But moving us into the second topic a little bit, how do you break down the metrics? So like when you're because this is hard, and we were talking about this pre-show too. We had a really great pre-show discussion. We got a lot done there. But like it's so hard to unless the customer tells you, I heard about you through the podcast, capturing who the clients are that came from the podcast can be difficult. And marketers, we love to obsess over attribution. So,
Mhm.
could we do that a little bit? Could you break down the metrics for us from traffic to clients? I mean, I know what I see on some like in terms of like social, where it depends on the platform, right? Some platforms give
Mhm.
you some data and some don't. But I'm just curious from your perspective, what's important?
Mhm. So depends on the client, right? So for a larger enterprise client or for a private equity, if you have a well-oiled sales machine and you have an SDR, one of the metrics needs to be that your SDR is speaking to all incoming leads within an hour, and that metric needs to be automated through Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever you're using. And the number one goal for this SDR is get contact that person, figure out how they heard about you, make sure that they're qualified, and then get them to book a call. And that open-ended question, how you heard about us, if attribution is broken because they're coming from a Slack community, or they're coming from a school community or a Facebook group, or they heard about you from a convention or from a friend, well, then that SDR can fill in that data for you. I think the person who taught me the most about it is a well-known influencer in this space, Chris Walker. Chris Walker says,
Mm,
don't
yeah.
listen to attribution. Just ask people how they heard about you. Talk to them quickly and listen carefully. And then if the CFO or the CEO is too in the weeds at trying to figure out the return on investment, then I think if you should be able to ask your salesperson, your head of sales, hey, do you think that your quality of your warm leads is going to hurt if we chop off this thought leadership project like a podcast? They should be in touch enough with their SDR to know that it's helping with their pipeline. It's moving people more quickly. Now, if we go to a smaller client, or we go to an e-com client, or if we go to a travel client, or even a zoo client, right? Like maybe this is not the time to talk about a podcast. Maybe this is where we're talking about true traffic and what are the metrics we need to truly break down here. That's where I would be careful with not getting bogged down with too much data, right? There's simple things that I want to look at, which are going to be, like percentage of the video sales letter did the person watch? That landing page that you have when a lead comes in from ads or from organic or a lead magnet or a cold email or whatever it is, if you're using a video to warm that person up, you need to have some traffic. You need to have some metrics around what percentage of the video did they come in on. If they're watching the video, those people closing faster. What's the sales cycle on that? And then you need to start adjusting those types of tactics in your funnel. I can give you an example of a metric, kind of a quantitative and qualitative survey that I did with an important client of mine about 3 years ago. They had a VIP subscription plan, very low ticket for the quality of their product, but they didn't know how to raise it. So they were doing $1 million in subscription per year, probably somewhere between 20 and 30% of their total revenue, but their subscription was less than $50 a year. And they were just giving it away. And I said, there's got to be something better that we can do. I said, why don't we take, the last 3 years of people who've continually purchased a yearly subscription and get me on the phone with 20 of them. Let me ask some questions to determine what is the best survey that we want to come up with. That's going to be a written survey. And then we're going to send that out to, our 30,000 subscribers, or 30,000 fans on Facebook, and send that out, obviously, out to all of our subscribers. And that data that we did there in that survey, we asked them, we are going to come up with a VIP subscription plan that's going to cost $199. What of these 5 things would you like bundled into that? Because we're going to be moving it from 25 at that point, 3 or 4 years ago, up to 199. And they just dropped and moved it around, and they told us exactly what were the items that they wanted. And they already knew, they were preconditioned to know that we're going to raise it to 199. And then we said, in order to raise it to this price, in order to include those items that you chose beforehand on your bundle, what are the items that you would feel comfortable with us currently taking away from your season pass? And we put items out there, and we put the items that are expensive for us or hard for us to deliver upon. And then they organized it, and they told us what are the items. And, the example you and I probably don't even remember, because we've been drinking Starbucks coffee for 30 years. But Starbucks was the first coffee shop that I remember where you have to go up and stand at a counter. You have to wait standing up, and they charge you more than any other coffee shop. So they took away waiters, right? So that's what we did with this client. We asked them, what is the expensive thing that I'm delivering, that we're giving you, that I can take away in exchange? I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to raise the price. Well, they told us. And now we're getting ready to sell that subscription in Black Friday in 2 months for $349. And 3 years ago, it was $25.
Wow, that's incredible. But yeah, and all through the power of just like building trust, right? And not focusing too hard on the data actually in terms of like attribution.
Yep.
So, speaking of the dirty data, let's talk about a dirty data dilemma and parsing messy metrics. Talk to us a little bit about this.
Yeah, this is challenging because, like, if you're a fractional CMO, I'm a fractional CMO. When you get started, somebody usually brings us on, at least in my case, because they have so much data and they don't know what to do with it. They have attribution broken, which is normal, right? Like, everybody has a certain amount of attribution that's broken. There's dark data out there as well. But I try to always think, there's kind of different sayings out there, keep it simple, stupid, or, 80-20, or I think Tim Ferriss says, if this hard problem, we're going to have an easy solution, what does easy look like? I always try to think about what is the 80-20, and I try to get a few of those people that are giving me the most amount of revenue for the least amount of effort on the phone. And I try to do that myself. I don't want anyone between me, right? Like, Napoleon, they always said that he was great at talking to his primary sources. And I want to do the same thing. So when somebody brings me in and they're complaining about data and attribution, I said, just point out 15 of your favorite customers that have closed in the last 2 weeks or the last month, and give them something for me to get on the phone if needed. We'll give them an Amazon, or we'll just tell them we'll make them feel grateful, or have the CEO call them, depending. And I can just remove data right away when I can talk to your 80-20 customer. And that might be the person who's the fastest to close, right? So, with a private equity company, the person who came to our website in the last 3 months and gave us $100,000 and closed, within 10 days, and the average sales cycle might be 1 month. Well, I want to talk to the 10 days people. I don't need more data. I need to figure that, and then I need to go figure out where they are. In some other instances, if you don't have clean data, go look at the people that are closing that have most pages viewed on your website, right? Like, we had an investor that came in 2 or 3 days ago, and the CEO said, hey, give me a breakdown on it. And the attribution wasn't great, right? Like, we could see that he saw an ad, but he came in from direct traffic. HubSpot didn't get it clean. Well, I mean, I don't really know 100% what brought him in, but I can tell you what helped close him. He looked at 193 pages on our website. So how you start to think about how can you get people to go down your website faster, even if everything else is broken. You know that some people, if they get educated quickly, they're going to close more quickly. With the hospitality client that I shared with you about the survey, we switched out their website about 6 months ago, and they needed to, in order to increase their revenue by $500,000, they had improve their conversion rate on their website, for conversion all the way to thank you page, to giving us the credit card. And how were we going to do that? We just revamped everything. And I said, well, why don't we just slow down and keep it simple, right? And I said, let's go find the 3 blog pages we're having the least amount of opt-ins, and let's change up the CTA, change the colors, change the positioning, change the offer. Let's go to our product page. We have 30 product pages. Let's go find the 3 that have the highest amount of value, but the least amount of revenue come in, the worst conversion, and let's touch those 3 things up. And we improved our conversion by 0.3% in 3 months, and we reached the revenue goal.
That is absolutely incredible. And I want to touch on that. But first, I want to go back to the website piece. And full disclosure, this is something that BDEX has started doing this year. I mean, they've been a consumer data exchange provider since 2014. But have all these partnerships with all these major data providers. So we really help major data providers also like clean their data. And so when you said clean data, it really like resonated with me, because that's what BDEX is all about. But because of that, and because of exactly what you said, the power of being able to see exactly who is doing what on your website, they built this pixel to put on the website. I think David just made a post this week about using it for a car lot. And I don't know the numbers that he posted off the top of my head, but it was really impressive to see, exactly how many people they were able to track coming into the car lot, then going to the website, et cetera, et cetera. And so like that kind of data, oh, man, that's powerful, especially for podcasts too, because of course attribution is going to tell you they came in through Google or something, or like, some Facebook ad that they just like saw you on after they listened to your podcast. But really being able to ask them, like we were talking about earlier, how did you really hear about us? That's where we're going to learn.
I think kind of the lesson that I take away from it, and I think it'll resonate with you because we do the same thing, we're both fractional CMOs, is you don't need a full-time chief marketing officer. And sometimes you having a mid marketing manager won't be able to turn marketing chaos into clarity. Sometimes you need someone to slow down with strategic insight. You need sharp execution and just the simple enough amount of data, right? Like talk to 15 happy customers, turn that into a survey all your people, raise your prices from $49 to $199. This year raised it to $349. And that's my pitch for fractional CMO. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be you. But you don't have to continue messing with dirty data. Sometimes keep it simple, stupid.
Totally. And I say the same thing, Peter. And actually, even for some of my clients, I convince them that they really don't need a fractional CMO, but they really should just hire us to help them with their live stream. And then that's our meat and potatoes for me, is taking a live stream and using AI to repurpose it into really anything you need: a newsletter, a show recap, a blog, but also, of course, video clips for all the social channels so they look native, all that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. You really don't need to have a CMO and even, fractional CMO at the end of the day. That's a really great point. But in terms of dirty data dilemmas in podcasting, man, I wonder what else we could think of. So dirty data dilemmas with podcasting, I had to tell you what I think of is like, man, I wish we could just capture more of those listeners who aren't downloading the podcast, you know what I mean? As well as like more data on them. Like, what do you think? I mean, you said you started this in 2020, so you've been doing it a couple more years than me. I started it in 2022. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think the future is? When are we going to start getting more data on that?
So My honest answer is I don't know. I have a smart friend from that entrepreneurship community that I mentioned before, Dynamite Circle, and he was building a software and about to acquire a software company that was pulling data and doing targeting ads on podcasts. I haven't spoken to him in a year, so I don't know where that's going to go. The way that I got around it, so I think I started my podcast in December 2020. And the way that I tried to do my best was similar to you. I live streamed on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook, just like you. And then one of the things that I would try to do is I would create some type of simple gated material that I would give away for joining a private Facebook group that was free to get in, or by going to our website. And that worked well at conventions, right? So I'd be up on stage and I'd say, hey, I have these templates on how you can use Sales Navigator to solve the staffing crisis in the healthcare industry. Or, hey, I have these templates to help you with how to do automations on LinkedIn for the new bank that you're chartering, type of thing, and give it away. So I think it's almost like we have to take a step back. We have to go back to gated material, like it's 2015.
Ah, and it's funny you say that because I did the same thing. I created a free workbook and course. So, how to basically build your personal brand. And I'm starting to add more to it with like TikTok because right now I'm growing more on TikTok and, selling products on TikTok, whole other thing. But yeah, I'm kind of following in your footsteps a little bit too, because for me, I'll be in October speaking at the High Level Summit. So had I not started a live stream, that wouldn't have happened either. So yeah, it does sort of lead to other things. And just like it's led to things for us, I know for clients who I help with live streaming, they are building trust with people who are in their ICP and they don't
Mm,
even know it,
mm,
and like until they come in and it's like the trust gap is already closed once those people come through the pipeline. And
mm,
that's when you get to hear like, oh, I heard about you on your live stream. Like,
mm,
most people are like silent on LinkedIn when I start with them. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like they're like posting, going live. And people are just like, oh, where have you been all my life? Um,
mm.
but
The
yeah.
the one iteration that I feel is having success is from the podcast My First Million. I used to consume My First Million at least every other podcast, and they moved from podcast over to YouTube, I think about a year ago. I'm sure they do both at the same time. And they just had a unique way for asking their audience to subscribe and like. And I felt that
Mm,
it was very authentic. And, I'd had them, I listened to their voices between my two ears for 2 years. So when they asked in the way that they did it. I think there's something to be learned about, being comfortable with an ask and knowing how to do it.
yeah. I haven't done really. I mean, I tried it, but it didn't really work out. Any outbound, in terms of like reaching out to people like, hey, will you do business with me? Everything either came in through that freebie or through the live stream itself.
Mm,
But yeah, that's what creating compelling content. And, like I just, if we talk a little bit about for a second, like why, why is
mhm,
it doing this? And to me, it's like, we can't, yes, marketers, we love, and especially for the last 20 years, I feel like we're like obsessed with data, right? We're like, oh, I can track who does what. Um, but like we do need to also get obsessed about surveys, like you were saying, because
mhm,
there's a lot more to learn there, and just asking customers how they heard about us. Um, but like in terms of podcasts, it humanizes us, right? It kind of like makes us less robotic. We get to be authentic, like you were saying. It's like you, as long as you know how to be yourself, and you can just like, I don't know, not be too promotional or too like, you can't look like an ad either.
mhm,
Which marketers, we love to look like ads. We love to build
mhm.
promotions, right? And we love copy. It's fun to make puns and all that cool stuff. But like just being a real human and offering value and helping people at the end of the day is
Yeah.
what. is what does it. I mean, what would you add? Like, why does it work so well?
Well, what worked for me at conventions more than a podcast, because they're, and at any conference, especially in health and healthcare, 70% of people don't want to talk about themselves, don't want to be on camera, don't want to have a microphone in front of them. So how do you connect, and how are you helpful for them? There's a lot of people like you and I who feel comfortable talking about ourselves. We know that it's good for our brand, our revenue, our income, our company, or whatever it is, but not everyone does. For me, what worked is I feel like I am authentically, naturally very, very good at things in LinkedIn. And so I just helped people with the staffing crisis, and I taught people how to use LinkedIn to talk to people that are in community colleges, because a lot of people in community colleges could be a nurse or a CNA, or are their stay at home, their moms, and so they need to make a little bit of money in weird hours and shorter schedules. And so it wasn't the podcast that helped grow the brand in person. The podcast made me kind of an interesting, shiny person in the room, but it was me helping people with staffing, and that was LinkedIn.
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting. We are big fans of LinkedIn here too. And David, who's normally here with us, he's on LinkedIn and he's always been super supportive
Mm,
of everything LinkedIn. Actually, he found me on LinkedIn.
mm.
So thanks to LinkedIn, we're even here today.
Well, and just to give another example, like a tactical example, I mentioned that I'm going to Vegas on Sunday or Monday to a really cool conference called Rhodium, with a bunch of people who buy online businesses and sell them. Big players. And I'm
Mm,
going with my teammate, who's the head of investments, Blago. And Blago's this brilliant person at Web Street that I work with. And we were talking about, like, how are we going to help people? And I said, Blago, you've spent so much time with legal due diligence. Why don't you just give away our legal contracts that we use at Web Street to all of these big players? And our boss, Mike V's like, yeah, we spent a lot of money on that. Why don't we just give that away? That's going to be helpful to everyone. Who cares if they want to give us a deal, or if they want to be a portfolio manager with us? Find something simple. For me, it was staffing. For Blago, he's going to pass off all the money that we spent on attorneys, and he can save somebody a lot of pain and due diligence.
that is so cool. Yeah, you really just have to give and like be willing to give away things for free as well.
Mm,
Totally. It's super important, and that's part of podcasting too, is we're just giving and sharing knowledge, or like you said, when you're going to speak in person at events. Um, but you're right, there is something special about being in person, and podcasts just kinda help get you there,
mm,
quicker if you are willing to speak.
mhm.
But it's important for businesses to find those people who are willing to be the face of their brand, because live streaming and podcasting for both B2C and B2B, it's not going anywhere.
Mm. I have a follow-up question for you, and I feel that this is kind of the elephant in the room that CEOs, boards don't want to talk about. How do you recommend, when you're talking to one of your clients that's entertaining a podcast, how do you explain to them that it's worth the risk of putting a face and somebody in front of the brand who's not an owner, who's not a CEO, who's not a board member? I know the way that I do it to make them feel
Mm,
at ease, but there's a lot of people that are afraid of having an employee have leverage over them.
yeah, that's a good point. And I think ideally leadership, there's someone from leadership who can be the face of the brand, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the social media manager. It could be whoever is willing to go on camera, and it should be, because there should be faces of the brand. And I think just people are people, right? And people buy from people, not brands. And I think for the most part, people are understanding that people come and go at companies, and
Mm,
you just have to make sure that you're doing things, like everything will show. So as long
mhm.
as you're being ethical, like then an ethical story will play out. But I don't know. I'd love to hear how you give people peace with this, because I actually haven't had to deal with that so much. Because so far, I've been lucky to work mostly with founders and CEOs who are going live.
Yeah. Well, the first instance, I don't think it was hard for me, because the CEO of the company that we were working in, Enterprise SaaS, I think he was good at reading human beings, and he knew that if I became kind of the face of the brand, he could trust me. I never used it. I
Mm.
never once asked for a raise. By the time I started the podcast, he had already given me a raise before I started the podcast. And then I never asked for one again. And we exited successfully from it. So there's a little bit of trust. If a leader is good at reading people, let that person follow their gut. The way that I explain it to other clients is, you know, the employee who's going to be the color commentator, the face, the person who's asking questions like you or like me, that person can be a mid-level employee, but that person needs to feel comfortable that the show's not about him or her. Rather, you're going to be, that person's going to be interviewing the executive leadership team, the CEO, and making them look amazing. And
Yeah,
so that's an easy way. The program wouldn't be about me. The program would be making you look amazing, making the head of investments amazing, the head of sales amazing, right? And I just do the prep work, and I'm the person who knows how to cover awkward silences. But I wouldn't have any leverage. The name of the show wouldn't be after me. All I am is the nice guy who makes everyone else looks great. And trust me, you and I are replaceable. We're just talkative
totally.
people. We all went to high school with somebody who couldn't shut up.
Exactly.
That's me and you in front of a camera.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And once you started talking, I started thinking about, well, really, it was my own experience because I was, marketer at BDEX. And um, when we were getting started, I was just trying to get David on Zoom to record and then making clips of it. But I was always cutting myself out. So then once we went live, I was like, man, I have to really be a part of this now. And like, um, it did feel awkward, even myself a little bit, because like, I'm like, "Do you want this?" Like, because 'cause I'm cool with it, but, like, I know it's a little bit awkward, right? So I think it's healthy to have conversations, and honestly, like, I think some businesses probably right now just are never gonna start a live stream, and that conversation is never gonna go anywhere, but there are, companies who are willing to do that and who wanna do that, and David was always super supportive and never made me feel awkward, and so, like, it just worked out, right? Just probably
Mhm.
like it did for you, at that company. But I
Mhm.
just realized I told you Adam was joining, and I was getting concerned about him, but remember how I sent you the wrong link? Because this was previously scheduled and then we like changed it.
Uh-huh.
I didn't send him the updated link, so now he's like, I'm like, oh my goodness,
Send him the link.
sorry.
Let's have him photobomb this, video
Yeah,
bomb
I
this
know.
live
Come on
stream.
in, Adam. I did. I sent him the link in Slack, so he has it. So if you're watching, Adam, you should totally jump in and join us. But yeah, that was totally my mistake. And I even sent you the wrong link, so my bad. I mean, we're all
It's
human,
okay.
right?
We
We're
we
all
we we
imperfect.
we, we had fun.
Yeah, this was a really great conversation. It's always good to talk about data regarding podcasting because I'm like, there's so little data around podcasting. So I appreciate you coming on and getting into that conversation. But before we go, you have to tell us what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
I love this question. I guess I'm going to try and give some lesser known ones, right? You mentioned high level. I love Go High Level. I use Go High Level at my agency. It's fantastic. Good one-stop shop. If you're south of $1 million in revenue, Go High Level is a great place to get started. And I would say some lesser known ones. Oh, I got a new one. Glimpse. Glimpse. I use it it's a Chrome extension for Google Trends, and it sends me alerts when things are changing. It tells me as a content marketer or a thought leader when to do content on certain types of trending keywords, and it lets you do research across different industries, different categories, different countries, including YouTube. That is awesome. Echo Jockey. Echo Jockey has been killing it for me. I think that's how I met you. Echo Jockey is a cool tool that will help you discover podcasts for you to get on and how to reach out to them and keep it organized for you. I'm happy to anyone who wants a tutorial on one of those. I'm happy to give you a rundown. I don't make money off them. I do have an affiliate link, but I've never once used it. So if you don't want to do it through me, I don't care. I don't make money off affiliate, but I'm just in love with those two tools. Another kind of weird small tool that I use that probably could be done in ChatGPT, but I like the way that the user interface is Cast Magic. I take podcasts, especially podcasts that are business related that will help me, and I put them into Cast Magic. And then I have prompts that are already ready that are what are the takeaways from the podcast that I should be doing as a marketer, as a strategist. I used it to prepare for this show. So I took a podcast of yours and put it in. I said, what are the questions they're going to ask? What are based on some of their reactions, what are things that their audience is going to like? Well, how does that line up with my expertise? And then I have like a buyer persona into that, and it knows what I can actually talk about. So that's how I prepare. Those are my smaller tools. I'm from when it comes with clients, I try to line up their tech stacks with their revenue goals. If they have too much dirty data, then I just try to keep it simple, right?
Definitely. Yeah, great points. And that tool sounds really cool. What did you say it was called?
Glimpse
Glimpse.
is my new favorite one, and then Echo Jockey. Send me a message. I'll be happy to introduce you to the team. I'm doing a testimonial video for Glimpse in the next week or two, and then I just did one for Echo Jockey. Because if you add me on LinkedIn, you're going to realize I've booked a whole bunch of podcasts in the last months using Echo Jockey.
Oh, that's really cool.
And shout out to the founder of Echo Jockey. He's in Dynamite Circle, the community that I've been pushing this entire time. It's my favorite online community.
Nice. That's really awesome. Well, in closing, Peter, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you?
Yeah.
Wait. I got to stop you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look who just joined us. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Jesse. I have been listening through the live stream on LinkedIn. It's been a great show. So sorry for the technical glitch and not being able to be part of the whole thing, but really enjoy your time today, Peter. Thank you so much for the insights and the wisdom and for sharing that with our guests.
My pleasure. I love that you came in, the two of us in kind of these YouTube studios, and you come from like a 1990s reporter coming from the hurricane with like everything blowing. Like, my kid just got blown away, but I'm here to report to you from.
I just need the Jim Cantori like bucket of water being thrown at me while I'm standing in a raincoat and rain boots, right?
Love
Exactly.
It. Great to meet you, Adam.
Yeah,
nice
Adam, sorry.
Well.
You don't need to apologize. It was totally my fault. This episode was scheduled before, so I sent you the old link. So I apologize. But
hey, it happens.
And you know what? A good thing is Peter was talking about the value of getting data from your website. I know that if you were here, you would have been like all over that because, I was telling them about David's post recently. I didn't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I don't know. Before I pass it back over to Peter to close us out, anything you want to touch on with that?
Yeah, no, we've seen a lot of success. Obviously, there's been a lot of change in the industry with Google announcing deprecating cookies and then not deprecating cookies, and then maybe it'll wait, and now it's not happening. And so a lot of brands are really just tapping into that exact thing, tapping into their first party data and leveraging the ability to identify website visitors to build a more qualified prospect and lead list to try to continue to grow the conversation and ultimately grow business down the road at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And with podcasts, it's great because, it's hard to attribute because they're typically just like listening and going to the website. So that's kind of what we were talking about. But thanks for sharing, Adam. And I hope the weather clears up. Is it supposed to clear up anytime soon?
We hope so. I think we're in for a real rainy, windy couple of days, but hopefully it won't be too bad.
Yeah, hopefully everyone stays safe. But in closing, Peter, I'm going to hand it back over to you. And, could you tell us a little bit more about Strategic Pete and then also let the listeners know where they can reach out to you?
Yeah, Strategic Pete, it's a fractional CMO strategic as an agency with strategy behind it. Feel free to reach out. I give away an hour of free consulting every single day. Would love to brainstorm with you on how to make sense of your data and where your 80-20 is. The easiest place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I've shared it multiple times. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm the only one over there, or go straight to my website. Look forward to talking to you all soon.
That's incredible. And before we go, I'm going to pull up our QR code. And rather than doing my like pre-scripted, like, why you should head over to the BDEX website, which if you're watching on video, you can scan the QR code. It'll take you over there and click on talk to an expert. But Adam, since we have you here, like they're going to be going to the the expert page and talking to someone like you. So since we have you here, do you want to close us out and tell them a little bit about what we're doing and how we can help them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, we'd love to talk to you a little bit more about ways that BDEX has built some technology to help you identify your own website visitors, as well as understand your first-party data, who your audience is, and expand that audience so that you can grow your business even faster. So, if any of that sounds interesting to you, we'd love to schedule some time to chat and talk to you a little bit further about your specific needs and ways that maybe we can help out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for closing us out. And thanks again, Peter, for joining us, as Adam as well for popping in late. And until next week, I'll go ahead and close us out with a video.